I'm going to be honest from the start, buying a pre-built gaming computer can feel like stepping into a foggy market where everything looks shiny, but you're not sure if the machine you pick will actually handle the games you love without breaking the bank. You've probably read a couple of spec sheets, maybe even watched a couple of unboxing videos, and you're left wondering if the price tag truly reflects the day-to-day experience. That's exactly why I'm going to walk through the Skytech Crystal Gaming PC, the kind of system that promises a strong CPU and a decent graphics card right out of the box, and see if it lives up to the hype in a real-world setting. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about who this machine is built for. If you're a gamer who spends most of your weekend on titles like Valorant, Fortnite, or even the more demanding Elden Ring, and you don't want to spend weeks researching each individual component, this is a solid candidate. The Ryzen 5 8400F paired with an AMD RX 9060 graphics card puts you comfortably in the 1080p TO 1440p sweet spot for most modern titles. For someone who wants to start playing at high settings now and maybe bump up a few settings later, the 16GB of DDR5 RAM running at 6000 MHz gives you enough headroom for multitasking. Think Discord, a web browser, and a game all running together without feeling cramped. On the other side of the coin, if you're chasing 4K gaming at ultra settings, hunting for ray tracing performance that rivals a high-end RTX 3080, or you already own a build with a more powerful GPU, you'll probably find the RX 9060 a bit limiting. The card is fine for most mainstream titles, but it won't push the highest frame rates in the most demanding titles. In short, if you're looking for a future-proof beast that can handle the next generation of graphics-intense releases without a hardware upgrade, you might outgrow this system sooner than you'd like. Now, the practical strengths. The most noticeable win is the storage configuration. A 1TB NVMe SSD means you're not just getting fast load times, you actually have enough space to hold a respectable library of modern games, plus the operating system and a few creative applications. I ran a quick test by installing Cyberpunk 2077, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. All three together occupied just under 250 GB, leaving ample room for future titles or media. The speed of the drive made installing the games a breeze, and game launch times were consistently sub 5 seconds, which feels like a tangible improvement over older HDD-based pre-builds. The built-in Wi-Fi 5, 802.11 AC, adds a layer of convenience if you're not wired into your router. I tested the connection in a typical apartment wall-plugged environment, and while it didn't top out the theoretical 1.3 gigabits per second, I consistently hit speeds around 500 megabits per second, which is more than enough for streaming in 4K and gaming without noticeable latency spikes. For anyone who can't run an Ethernet cable to their desk, that's a genuine plus. Another real-world advantage is the high-performance air cooler. Many budget pre-built rigs cut corners on cooling, leading to higher fan noise or thermal throttling under load. With this Skytech model, the CPU kept temperatures in the low 70s C during a 30-minute Battlefield V marathon, and the fan noise stayed at a tolerable hum, not the loud whine you sometimes hear from cheaper cooling solutions. That means you can push the machine through long sessions without the constant need to lower graphical settings to keep the thermal envelope in check. I also appreciate the knobloadware claim. Often, pre-built PCs come with trial software that clutters the drive and slows down the first boot. I discovered a clean Windows 11 installation with only the essential drivers and the Skytech control app, nothing that forced me to uninstall or fight through pop-ups. That translates into a smoother out-of-the-box experience, which is a hidden value that many reviewers gloss over. In terms of drawbacks, there are a couple that are worth highlighting. First, the power supply is a 650W gold-rated unit, which at face value sounds generous, but the headroom is modest if you plan to upgrade components later. Adding a larger GPU or a second SSD would start to push the limits, meaning you'd likely need to replace the PSU down the road. That's not a deal-breaker for the average gamer, but it's something to keep in mind for future-proofing. Second, the graphics card brand may vary, as noted in the product description. I received a model where the RX 9060 bore a reference cooler rather than an aftermarket solution. In practice, the reference cooler performed adequately for most games, But in titles that heavily tax the GPU like Shadow of the Tomb Raider at max settings, the GPU would ramp up to around 80C and the fan profile would become a bit more audible. It's not a catastrophic issue, but if absolute silence is a priority for you, you might want to consider an aftermarket cooler upgrade later. Another nuance is the lack of modularity in the case. The chassis is a straightforward mid-tower with limited space,